All right, it is 6:01. We are going to get started. Thank you for being here tonight. Just a couple sort of how it's going to work tonight. I'm going to go through this is a webinar, and so you can submit questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. I can't keep my eye on it, constantly, but I will look at it throughout, and then especially at the end to see if I can go through and try to answer any questions. If if your question doesn't get answered for whatever reason, just email me and I will answer it tomorrow or get someone who can. And we're going to try to keep it around a half an hour, have a lot of stuff to go through, a lot of different stuff. If you need to leave in the middle of it, this will be recorded and we'll put it up on YouTube a little bit later this week. And anyway, thanks for being here. Let's put the slides up. All right, we can go to the next one. Okay. I just want to go through some of what we're going to try to accomplish in the next 30 minutes. We are going to, or I'm going to review general results from the survey. We're going to look at each question and we're going to look at trends that came from each question. I'm not, every single trend that I share tonight, I do not have like a specific plan for each of those things. We do have some thoughts about some next steps. For some, for sure. But we wanted to share what the general trends were for the results. We want to talk about some potential next steps that we're working on right now. With some of them, we want to share where we are in the budget process. We want to share where we are with the cell phone policy and the governor's proposed bell-to-bell cell phone restriction law. And, briefly at the end, share where we are with the capital project work and answer questions. And like I said, you submit a question. If it's something, I'll do my best to answer them as we go. I will look through them again at the end. And if I don't answer your question, just email me and I'm happy to give it a shot tomorrow. All right. So the next slide, just the survey overview. We last did a survey like this in 2022. It was really about 2.5 years ago. That 2.5 years ago, we had about 450 folks do the survey. And this time we had a little bit over 700 respondents, which was great. We had students, teachers, staff, parents, and caregivers all fill it out. And we did use the same questions as last time. The last time we were working with a consultant group at Elements through Duchess Bosse's, and they were helping us with the data collection. And they did this. So this data, the data sort of analysis has been on me and the team. So it took a little bit longer for us to do, but we did use the same questions as last time. And so just, I said this just at the jump, but we had 4 main questions to this. It was open-ended. So we got, as you can imagine, with over 700 people answering this, we had a tremendous amount of feedback with the survey. And I've read each answer that each person has given several times. My team has also looked through the survey, and the survey has been available to the Board of Ed to look through as well. I know the Advocacy Public Relations Committee has looked at it maybe a little bit, more specifically. So that said, if you put something in the survey that you don't feel like I answered tonight, you can always reach out to me separately. 700 times 4 is, close to 3,000, 2,800 different answers. And so I really like open-ended because it really captures a lot. I did my best with my team and some analytic tools to come up with trends from the survey. If you feel like I overlooked something that you may have put in the survey, just reach out. I am happy to connect about that. Okay. All right. So we're going to go through each question and talk about some of the trends we saw, and then, get into other stuff as well. All right. Next slide, please. Okay. Question number one was, what would you like to see improve, grow, or change about our school district's academic programs? So we did categorize these answers into, parents, caregivers, students, and teachers and staff. Again, we're doing just sort of general overview tonight. I'm not, for each of these slides, I'm not going to read every single word that's on the slide, but I will go through this one a little bit. For parents and caregivers, some of the trends were this: earlier foreign language instruction, more enrichment and challenge for students, better academic supports for struggling students, less screen time, more hands-on learning. For students, some of the trends we saw was a desire for more practical life skills courses, more hands-on activities and science experiments, better and more technology classes, more language options, more music and art options. For teachers and staff, more time to implement new curriculum, more cohesion between grade levels, more consistent policies across schools, and better support for students struggling academically. So we got a lot of really rich answers for this. And, I also just want to say, while I'm on here, I should have started with this, just a huge thank you to the 700 folks who took the time to fill this out. Your answers were really, really looked at closely. And again, we were looking for trends here, but I was just really appreciative of just the really good feedback we got on each of these questions. Really helpful, and I think really honest feedback. And so it was really useful. So in general with this, part of the drive to redo or do the survey again is to really revise our district strategic plan. And so we want to try to address some of these things in the plan that will be coming in the next few months before we hit the end of the school year. And the first iteration of the strategic plan we had was really great. We had a lot of academic focus as a district. It wasn't reflected in that plan, so we want to improve that as we go. We're just doing it internally. We're not using outside folks anymore to help us with that. So that said, none of these things are necessarily a huge surprise, but it's really great feedback and has influenced some of our thinking about the budget even next year. I will just highlight a couple here. Earlier foreign language instruction, that was one that was pretty common on the survey we did a couple of years ago as well. And so that's something that I don't have like a quick and easy answer to, but we want to see what's possible with that. And that may be sort of a multi-year look into seeing what's possible with that. It is one of our harder to staff areas for the existing languages that we teach with the existing grades that we teach. But that said, it is something that very frequently comes up in the survey from both the last time and this one. Better academic supports for struggling students. You saw that both from the teacher staff side and the parent side. So that's something we've been focusing on a lot even before this survey, but we have some budget thoughts about that we're working on, and I'll get into that in a second. Less screen time. So with that, we want to take stock, especially at the elementary level, of how much screen time we're doing right now. So we're going to work with the principals to get a sense of where we are, and then develop some guidelines for each grade, especially going into next school year, but maybe even before the school year ends. On the student side, I really liked what we got from the students in the survey across the board. But certainly they're wanting more hands-on activities, which is something we've already been trying to do. And I love seeing that they want more, better technology classes, more arts and music time. By better is maybe not the best word there. It's, I think, a sense of like more, honestly, is what we were seeing a lot. More language options, more arts and music time too. So with this One question, we do have some initial thoughts about, at least that we're thinking about the budget. All these things have been mentioned in different board meetings over the last few months, but I wanted to kind of try to give a sense of where we are with them right now. If you can go to the next slide. So just some next steps for question one. Some major budget focus areas that we're looking at for next year is at Roundabout, trying to add programmatic and academic supports through a potential new schedule. And with the new schedule, we would need additional teaching staff. So just a couple thoughts about that. It is definitely a work in progress right now. We're taking the next month to 6 weeks to try to at least finalize our thinking there. But the thought right now would be to add, to switch it from an 8-period day to a 9-period day. Many of the middle schools in the area do a 9-period day. Our high school moved to a 9-period day a few years ago. And so it would, right now, students who have an academic intervention support class sometimes miss out on one of like sort of the special classes or the elective classes. So that would take that away, and those students wouldn't have to lose that class. It would also enable us to add a variety of either electives or new offerings to students while also strengthening the academic support side. So what we're working on right now is what it would look like, what classes we would offer, what additional classes we would offer, and then what additional teaching staff we would need to do it. And obviously this is extremely related to the budget, which I'll talk about a little bit closer to the end, but it's, very contingent on the budget. One of the reasons that we are talking about it is we're feeling somewhat optimistic about the budget this year, and we really want to focus this. So what we're envisioning for this is at one of the March board meetings, doing like a formal presentation about this. I talked about doing follow-ups at each of the schools. I would want to do like for in-person meetings for me and parents and whatever staff would want to come. I would probably do the Roundabout one more into March. So we would know a little bit more in detail about what the potential new schedule would look like and everything that went into it. But we need some more time to work on it. And like I said, it is a pretty big budget initiative for us. We're thinking at least right now that it could mean 3 to 4 additional teachers to round out that schedule. And so anyway, it's something that we're really looking at, and we've been thinking about for a while. But we've talked about it just kind of, not in great detail, but we've mentioned it in a couple of board meetings leading up to this. But it's something that like I said, we're taking another 4 to 6 weeks to really work on it and try to hammer out some of the details, both budget side, what we're offering and all that. But we're excited about the potential there. We also want to add further academic intervention services through potential new positions K through 8. So that would be additional positions to support either reading or math, especially at the elementary level. The new schedule would really kind of help already with the academic support stuff at Roundabout. But we want to add further academic support positions at the elementary level. Again, this would be a budget initiative as well. So we are slightly optimistic that we can grow this budget season. And then lastly, and this is a much smaller thing, but Mr. Dwyer, when he presented to the board a couple of months ago, he talked about some new summer programs at BHS, one being for incoming 9th graders to help it be a 2 or 3 day experience in the summer that helps get them ready for the high school experience. So these are taking up a lot of our thinking and planning right now, just because we see an opportunity, and it's really supported by some of the survey data, or a lot of the survey data that we've seen in terms of strengthening things. So for the additional questions I get into, I don't necessarily have huge budget initiatives attached to each one, but I will or a slide like this, but I wanted to get to this. We got the most data from the academic portion of the survey, and I wanted to at least start painting a picture of this is what we're looking at for the budget. All right, next slide. All right. Question 2, what would you like to see improve, grow, or change about our extra and co-curricular activities? I'm seeing that I need to add a quotation mark to that slide, but beyond that, we received a lot of feedback. The last time we did this about 2.5 years ago, during that sort of time frame, we really added a lot of clubs to, especially at the elementary level, but also Roundabout and a little bit to the high school. So we did a really huge investment in that. But as you see on this slide, there's a lot of more clubs, more inclusive activities. So we're really going to do some planning around how to make that happen. Better transportation for activities. You see that as a trend there. That's a tough one, but has been a goal for us for a couple of years now, and we'd love to accomplish that next year. And then some issues around funding, more equitable funding across programs. So I think a first thing we can do is try to be more transparent around the way we fund our extracurricular activities. We probably could grow in that area and then have the conversation more about equity. We did try at the elementary level and the middle school level to make the funding for clubs that we provide, to each of those schools as a sort of per student amount to make it equitable, so that one elementary school wasn't doing like twice as many clubs as another one. You see for the students, more options, more music options, more sports options, better equipment, and more clubs. So who knows? Maybe we can grow our clubs. It's something that we'll always look at. I really believe that clubs are a great way for kids to connect to schools. I've seen it myself as a parent. It's grounded in the research as well. So we really want to take a look at that. And then teachers also talked about more support for club advisors, the transportation again, the need for more inclusive club programming, better coordination between activities. So we got a lot of great feedback here. I will say a couple things as we've really looked at the club issue and really dramatically grown the amount that we're offering, like I said, especially at the elementary level and Roundabout. We have realized that a lot of districts charge money for clubs, which is something that we don't do here. We want to continue that. So that's something that we're proud of, and we certainly want to try to continue that as we go. So with this data, we're just always going to take it back to our staff, both principals and teachers, and other people who do clubs, and just see what else we can do, and really try to work with our transportation department to see if we can offer a little bit more transportation to make it more accessible for students too. So this will always be a work in progress, but we got a lot of great feedback here. Next question, next slide. All right. So this question, like I mentioned at the beginning, we did this survey, 2.5 years ago with some consultants. They were the ones that kind of came up with the questions. And so we repeated them. This question 3 is, a little bit different. It asked what we're doing well, and then how could we be improved? So it did elicit, just by the nature of the question, some more kind of like some positive stuff. But we got a lot of great feedback on this in terms of how communication could be improved. So I'm not going to get into all parts of this, but we're appreciative of some of the positives. We've really put a lot in my 8 years here in the district, or this is my 8th year in the district. We've really poured a lot into communication. So I was appreciative, just on a personal level, of a lot of people appreciating just that work we put into the communication part. I think we've really grown over the years as a district regarding that. That said, there's great feedback on this page here. I'm not going to talk about every single one, but part of this revision of our strategic plan will have a communications portion. I'll be in charge of that, even though there's many people who are working on that at each building and in different departments. We're going to take a lot of this feedback to try to strengthen that plan. Just a couple things I'll note. Like from the family side of things, learning about things earlier, I totally get that as a parent. More consistent communication from classroom to classroom, I get that as well. From the student side, more student-friendly communication. Not to speak for them, but I would hazard to guess they would say don't rely on only email. So we'll certainly try. I know at the high school they try to do different ways of connecting with the kids. And then from the staff side, better internal communication is something that I think we could really work on. Although I think we have a lot of strengths there. I think overall it's something that we could improve as well. Another thing that came up was also having a really clear sort of regularly updated, like a weekly district calendar. So that's a goal for us for next year. We are spending this year rolling over or migrating over to a new website for the district that will launch sometime this summer. And we want for the start of next school year to have so you can see at a glance what's happening at each school or district-wide events. And that's something that we're really lacking in right now. But as you can see, if you're looking at the screen here, there's just a lot of great feedback here. And so we're going to always try to strengthen this, strengthen what we do here. One of the things that that I'll add to this that we also saw was also a desire for continued and more in-person events. So I certainly don't see doing a Zoom webinar as like the epitome of interaction or communication. It's a great way to sort of get the initial message out. I personally will, work with either PTAs or principals or both at each building to do an in-person conversation around this stuff over the next couple of months. But I also know like our elementary schools are all planning some really interactive parent, caregiver, family events over the next couple of months. We're trying to do a lot of informational events, K-12 for families. So it's something that we've really tried to work on and we will continue to try to strengthen as we go too. So thanks for the good feedback and also thanks for the growing feedback here about ways we can get better. Next slide. How can we help make the district more welcoming and inclusive of all students, staff, and families? We got some great feedback here. So a trend we saw across both parents and caregivers and teachers and staff is the need for more diverse hiring. So briefly, what I'll say about that is that's always been a goal of ours. The goal is in the process part. So we always are trying to expand our reach and expand our expand the number of applicants, expand expand connections to universities or training places for teachers and other positions. And trying to get, I think the goal really is to try to get diverse hiring pools. So we're looking at diverse candidates and diverse in a whole number of ways. So it was great to see that reflected in the survey as well. More support for English as a new language families. Sorry, there's a couple abbreviations here. PD stands for professional development. You see a request for more PD for inclusion. You also see that on the parent side, a desire for more inclusive special education, more cultural events, more community events. And then down at the bottom of the slide for the students, better facilities in terms of air conditioning and bathrooms. Some of that's being addressed in the 2024 capital project that folks voted on. This kind of goes back to that question 2 one about clubs and extracurriculars, but to make them more inclusive. Back to the parent part, better new family orientation, financial assistance for activities. These are all things we're working on. Something that actually wasn't as common as some of the others, but since it was in the survey, I wanted to make sure it was on here, is better responses to conflict and bullying among students. So that's something that through some different ways, responsive classroom, positivity projects now for the 4 elementary schools, not just Sargent. We're going to find ways to move that work into 6th grade at Roundabout next year. So we're looking for further ways to address that too. But we got a lot of great feedback for this question as well. All right, next slide, please. So this is just some next steps in terms of what we're doing with all this information. So I mentioned this before several slides ago when I was talking about a potential new schedule requiring new staff at Roundabout, and also when I was talking about new academic support teachers like reading / math at the elementary and at Roundabout as well. That we're working on the plans behind those and the budgeting behind those, and that's going to take us the next couple of months to work through. I don't want to wait for all of that to be unveiled by mid-April. That's sort of like when we have to have it all completed. But definitely next month in some of the school meetings, and especially I mentioned the Roundabout one when I'm at Roundabout for the parent conversation. I want to talk about if we still feel like we're able to do a new schedule. I want to talk in detail about that. So working on in-person meetings at schools. So that is either at a PTA meeting or just kind of on my own with the principal. Most likely in the evenings, we'll be working on scheduling those. I've been juggling just a few scheduling things right now, but my schedule clears up in a couple of weeks. So those will be much more easily scheduled and planned. And I hope to get that schedule done in the next 2 weeks and to make that public. We are doing a climate survey through a company called Panorama for all the students at Roundabout and all the students at Beacon High School. We may have it done by the end of February. I'm putting March there because that is when we've fully want it done, but that will focus on student connectedness to peers, student connectedness to staff, and also how students feel about school in general. Our goal with that is to have it be a yearly thing, so we have data to kind of compare to as we go. We want to make final revisions to the strategic plan by April, so really incorporate the academic work we've been doing, curriculum revisions, work on reading, special education planning, communication planning, and facilities planning. We want that to be a part of that strategic plan as well. And I'll talk about this on a specific slide, but work on reviewing and revising the cell phone policy this spring and summer. So those are just some things that we are working on based on this. Next slide, please. So just really briefly, I will not spend a ton of time on this, but I think it's important to talk about this stuff and remind folks. The governor's proposal, she doesn't, make a specific proposal just for the Beacon City School District, but in her overall state proposal, it's clear what would be coming for Beacon, and that would be a close to 2% increase in foundation aid. So we are excited about that. As you probably know, last year was flat, and that was tough to deal with. State aid is not the entire bulk of our funding. We get a lot of our funding through from our local tax base, but it's very crucial for our programming and what we do here in Beacon. The pre-K funding that the state provides is the same as last year, so that's something that we're looking more into to see as a potential area for advocacy. Because certainly with all that we're doing with pre-K, I'm pretty sure that we're doing more than most or all the districts in the region in terms of full day pre-K, that allocation should be increasing. So that's something that could be an advocacy thing for us. All right, next slide. And this is just our tax-based growth factor. This upcoming year is that number there. And so that's high for us in Beacon. That allows us to generate more revenue through our tax levy. So that will be something that we get way more into detail about as we go through the budget season this year. Next slide. I'm just going to touch on this briefly. So there is the, I've been sort of hedging a little bit as we've gone into, I keep saying we're optimistic about the budget or potentially optimistic, things like that. Getting the increase from the state is huge. I mean, it's not done yet, but usually things don't go down from the governor's proposal. I did attend a regional session on budgeting that was run by the statewide Superintendent Association, and where they said things could get sticky for New York is potential changes with federal support for for New York in general, and that could impact the governor's budget and possibly make the governor and the legislature reduce funding for schools to pay for other things. So there's the possibility that Medicaid funding gets cut for New York. May not directly impact us at the school level, but it could impact the overall state budget. There's a chance that funding for school meals, the formula changes. Currently, Beacon is in the program that all of our students eat free meals. That could change, and so with the governor and legislature try to cover some of the costs if the federal funding got pulled out, and then also potential changes within the education department itself. So there's a lot going on there. I'm obviously not the news source for this. You can do that yourself, but we will be monitoring what happens at the federal level in terms of how it could impact us, and we'll let folks know as we go through all that. There is obviously a lot more uncertainty with some of these things than before. Next slide. And then just, always take a moment to talk about capital project work, because we have this overlap between our two projects. The 2021 capital project is just about done. We have one major last piece to that, and that's replacing the boiler at Glenham and putting some new unit ventilators in Glenham this summer. That will, for the most part, be done at the end of the summer of 2025. As some folks know, I live down the street from Forrestal, and the accessibility ramp that we built for the playground and all of that. There's some issues that we're working out between the architect and the contractor regarding that, and so we hope that will be finally done this spring. And then the capital project 2024 that everyone voted on, or folks voted on last May, that's going to be happening over summers of 26, 27, and 28. We're doing the planning for that right now. But the first wave of that is going to be starting the soonest is the overhaul of the Beacon High School HVAC system, which really needs it. So that's going to be the first thing that the architects are already going to be submitting plans to the state on. Just a reminder for the 2024 capital project, we talked about cooling centers in our 4 elementary schools, and we talked about things like new windows, new roofing, and a lot of sort of infrastructure upgrades. We talked about some new renovations to the theater at the high school, some improvement work on the softball and baseball fields at the high school. So a lot of sort of infrastructure, some community-wide spaces, and the cooling centers being a huge part of it. And our architecture team and our facilities team is looking at how much basically we can get done and trying to price things out and then trying to develop a timeline for all that. So that's what's happening with the capital project. Um, all right, I'm just going into the Q&A here. Extracurricular activities for high schoolers have any connection with the community, i.e. Beacon Rec would like to see BHS swimming pool have better hours for the community. That is something that we're really looking at for next year in terms of ways to expand that. I'd love to, I don't want to say specifically Beacon Rec because maybe it's someone else, but I'd love to find ways to expand the hours for families for the pool. So we're trying to look hard at that too. It's very unique for us to have a pool. Many high schools and school districts do not have one. So we want to find some ways to make it more accessible. I have another slide. Sorry, before I get all to finishing the questions, the next slide. So I've kind of mentioned most of these things. So some of our budget focus areas, and by focus areas, I'm talking about ways where we possibly are adding. Last year our budget was we did not really add much to it. It was more of a maintenance budget. This year we're trying to find ways to add to it. So I already talked about adding programming and supports at Roundabout, adding academic supports at K-5. We're looking at the possibility of more mental health supports through some potential grants, and then professional development. And if you're looking at the survey results, you saw professional development really being throughout a need for more professional development. And then next slide, please. Where's there? Maybe that's my last one. I think I left a slide out, and so apologies for that, but I want to talk briefly about the cell phone. So as many of you are aware, our current cell phone policy is a clear classroom restriction, but kids are able to have them out at lunch and recess at the middle school and high school. The governor in her budget proposal proposed what she's calling a bell-to-bell ban that schools need to implement. This has to go through the legislative process. I sent an email to the community a couple of weeks ago. I think it's likely to pass. My understanding of it is that the cell phones have to be stored away for the entirety of the day. We'll see what comes out in the legislation. That's what we are going to be preparing for, both policy-wise and practice-wise. But I'm not totally sure what's going to be the end result of the policy. Our current policy, I think at the practitioner level at the schools has been working well. We have not had a lot of discipline issues regarding phones, which has been great at both middle and high school. And I think teachers have been really appreciative of it. And we, like I said in the email, will be ready to implement the new law. And so one thing I'll add about that is in the governor's budget proposal, she was providing funds for schools to help pay for it, which, we'll really advocate for that to stay in the budget because that would be important for us to keep in there, because some funding to help with the storage devices would be great. So I'll try to add that slide in later, but forgot to mention that last part. So it's 10 minutes over, so I apologize about that. A lot of information that we went through. So like I said, I'm not going to go through every next step again, but we're going to be setting up those face-to-face meetings at each of the schools. They'll happen over end of February through March. We're going to be working on, making some of these plans much more concrete with the board and with the community. And budget is the really crucial thing that we're working on right now. And we're optimistic that we're going to be able to pull some of these things off at least, and excited to do it. So I also envisioned probably doing another one of these Zoom things as well, just as a way to get something recorded about like, here's where we are with the budget. And like always, I will try to kind of keep folks updated through the weekly updates as well. So if anyone has any questions, you can email me. I'll hang around for a minute if you want to put it in the Q&A thing, and I'll take a look at those and try to answer them right now. But I'm super appreciative of you hanging around. And like I said, just reach out if you want to talk more individually about any of these things. I'm happy to do that. I'm just going to wait a second to see if anything pops up. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here, and really appreciative of you taking the time and taking the time to sit here and listen. And if you got something out of this when we put the recorded version up on YouTube and we share it with the community, tell folks to check it out. All right. Thank you. Talk to y'all soon.